you're the guy companies call when they want to sell their business and figure out how much it's worth. Or they have, something related to that, right?
Yeah.
You're the guy they call in. So and then obviously there's some financial things that go along with that and some aspects to consider. When is the right time to sell your business? How do you evaluate a business and know how much it's actually worth?
Yep.
All that type of stuff we're going to get into today. I first wanted to just talk about, because this is round 2 for you. You were here back, about a year ago, as we were saying. At that time, you're growing the business. I know things are going well. You had mentioned a couple things about hiring people and kind of taking yourself out of the day-to-day as a founder and trying to put yourself in positions where you can generate the most ROI for the company.
Yep.
How is that going?
It's an ongoing challenge, right?
Yeah,
because as a founder,
here.
as if someone puts their name on the door and is the face of the business, it's always challenging to take a step back and trust someone. And so that's why hiring people is so important, because you're essentially giving away responsibility and you're trusting them that they're going to take that and handle it in the same way that you would as a founder. Yeah. That's a huge level of trust. I've been very fortunate. I have an amazing team. I just hired my 5th employee a couple months ago. She's doing fantastic. And really, the qualities that I'm looking for, yes, I want the financial knowledge and the skills. Do they have that? But more importantly is, do they have the drive and that kind of that little hunger of an entrepreneur? Maybe not necessarily in the traditional entrepreneur sense, but hunger to learn, hunger to expand, and to take ownership of a project. Yeah. I have an amazing team. I'm very fortunate on that end. And they have allowed me to pass on some of the responsibilities to then allow me to keep developing the business, developing a little more, of the brand and company recognition, and take a step back from the minutia details and be more strategic in what I do. It's for all founders, it's an ongoing challenge. But
for sure.
But I'm taking steps, and I think we're going in the right direction.
No doubt about it. And Henry Kaskov Valuations is the company. Just for anyone listening now, we'll link everything up in the show. But how do you go about? Have you found anything that works really well from how do you hire great people? That are proactive, that are have a little bit of an entrepreneurial problem-solving mentality.
Yeah. What I've found, every single person that I've hired has come through some part of my network. I did the LinkedIn blast and kind of resume. And you get dozens, hundreds of resumes,
and it's way off.
Yeah,
I'm in India, and I'd love to. It's like, this is on site. This is not.
Yeah, it's that's a challenge. But what I found is I connected with people in my network and said, hey, here's the job description that I'm looking for. Here's the individual. Do you know someone? And so I was able to connect with people that knew someone that knew someone. And that's how I got connected to it. And then so because anytime you make an introduction, you're kind of trusting that person that you're connecting with is going to be a good reflection on you. Right?
Yes.
And so
otherwise you don't make the introduction if you're like, this person sucks. I'm not going to.
It's going to look bad on me, right?
Exactly.
So I've been, when people connect, you're generally connecting with like-minded or good people. And I've been able to find, and when I do my interview, yes, I'm doing some technical questions, but really I want to understand how they think. When they get a problem, when they're, finish their project, they're just going to sit on their hands and wait until I tell them something to do.
Right.
Or they can say, hey, I'm done with this, but I also thought we can get X, Y, and Z done as well. And you take that ownership and push yourself. So that's a quality that I want to look at. Yeah.
But how do you find that quality? Do you give them little tests to do?
Little case studies, right? I want to understand, are they the type of person that just give me the tasks and I'll do it, or the type of person that I want to learn the why?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm doing X, Y, and Z, but why am I doing it? And then, this is the kicker, what is the impact of doing this on the next step?
There we go.
Because I understand these things, but I'm doing this because I know it'll impact the valuation here. I know it'll impact the analysis in this way. And that's when you start to see how a person can develop into a very logical and an appraiser type mentality, where I make a couple adjustments and assumptions here, but that ripples into the value of the business here. Yeah. And once you start to connect those dots or have the analytical ability, that's what I'm trying to look for. It's tough. Not a lot of people have that. Some people are more, just give me a task and I'll do it and I'll be done. Right. That's fine. It's just not the role that I'm looking for.
Yeah, especially at a smaller company, startup, that kind of stuff, like, scrappy, or just you got a smaller team, like you need people to kind of wear multiple hats,
Yes.
Yeah, we did an interesting thing in the last hire that we made for a client where, and I'm sure there's probably other companies that do assessments and that kind of stuff, but for us it was unique, where instead of we had 2 interviews with 2 people for content managers roles. And both of them interviewed really well. One girl, I would almost say, potentially interviewed better. And then we gave them a quick test. And we said, here's a project. We're going to pay you to do it if you're up for it. It's only going to take 3 hours. and they both submitted the project, which was to, break down a video, create a blog post, a video clip, everything optimized for AI search and SEO, this whole thing. We didn't expect it to be perfect. We just wanted to see how their minds worked around this and how they actually got shit done and how long it took them. The girl interviewed pretty well, like just kind of flopped on the project. Just had a clip in there where the first couple seconds would never be something we'd post on social media. And if you know social really well, you would know that. Yeah. And the other person, it was like, she gets it right away. You could tell. And it was just like, well, there you go. I mean, they both interviewed well. One maybe even a little better, but it was like we got to see the work, and it was like, I see how she thinks about that. That makes sense that she put this here and not that there. And so I would encourage people listening to do some type of assessment or mini project, or put them through a hoop or two, because everyone's going to tell you they're this or that, but when you get on the job, it's sometimes a different story.
And there's, you hear about the people that are great interviewers or professional interviewers.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's, do you actually know?
Yeah.
Besides the answer that you've memorized, do you actually know? Yeah. How do you think? Because that's more important. It's not, and then, you think about, you look at the resumes. Did they work at the big firm? Did they go to the big college? Those things, that doesn't really matter as much to me. I don't need you to go to the top schools or work at a big four accounting firm. Like that, that's great if you have that experience. But I just want to know, what's your drive? Are you that person that's driven? Do you understand it? How does your brain work? That's the quality I'm looking for most.
That's right. What do you feel like you can do as a founder that your team can't do right now? Because that seems to be the gap that most founders are trying to close, right? And maybe it's not always going to be 100%, but it's like, how do we get it 80?
Yeah. Right now, the way the business works is I'm the business development side, the front end, bringing the work
Creating
in.
demand, yeah.
And then I'm also doing the final review and sending the final valuations out the door.
That's close to how we're set up.
And so
we're trying to be.
I can be the bottleneck more so on the finish side, because if I have a couple of reports and valuations I need to review, I haven't got to them, I'm the one holding it up. I have a good mix of staff between experienced and mid and junior staff. And so some of my experienced people are starting to take on more of that final review. They're getting to a level where they could start signing reports alongside myself, and maybe eventually without me.
Yeah.
So then that bottleneck at the end gets opened up, and so we can get more out the door. So, and then on the front end, in terms of sales or business development, you kind of have to want to do that. Yeah. You have that drive to network. And some people are just not, they're more introverted. They don't want to meet people and bring in work. Yeah. Totally fine. Right. But if you're more, you want to do some development, I'm
better
happy
get a co-founder that does like that if you don't like doing that stuff or something.
But we're starting to get some of my senior staff to do some business development, some networking, and they're getting into that world, because as you know, it's a long-term relationship. In my business, I'm not going to have coffee with you, shake hands, and expect you to feed me work.
Right.
Like that doesn't happen. No. Yeah. You meet someone, you get to know them, you like them, you trust them over the years. Yes. You do a project. Oh, you did a good job. Okay, I'll get the next one. And so it's a very long-term thought. So, I'm trying to manage that. I mean, as a small firm with literally my name on the door, there's a lot that is going to be on me. Yeah. But as you develop a team, it's you can start to offload some of those next level responsibilities and free up my time.
Mm-hmm. And do you want to sell the business at some point, or have you thought about it?
They say that every person that goes into business should think of the exit, have a thought about it at onset, and whenever you're making any big decisions. When you think about, do I expanding, right? Do I hire another person? Do I buy this factory? Do I expand this product line? You always think of, how is this going to grow the value of my business? And eventually, for me, I'm still relatively young. I could see myself doing this for a very long time. Right. So if I sell the business, great. Do I sell it to an outside party? Do I sell it to my staff? I have 2 young boys. Do they want to get into the business down the road?
Cool. How old are they?
10 and 8.
Yeah.
So we got some time.
We got some time. But you can put them on your payroll now and have them start doing stuff.
I've given them some organization
That's a founder tip right there. You can actually write that off in taxes. Yeah. It's got to be legit. They got to be doing some work. But
I've thought of that.
Account and put them in.
Yeah, they're close. No, not yet. I think they a little bit older, but yes. And I've heard that you can. I'm not a financial advisor, but take whatever earnings they make, throw it into an IRA, a Roth IRA. It's tax free, and have it grow until they're retired, and that could talk about compound interest. That can grow over time. So
there's a tip. Did you know you can put your kids on your payroll as a founder legally?
Yeah, and make sure they're actually doing the work.
And we're not financial advisors, just to be clear here. So seek financial professional help. You got to say that now, right? Yes. But if you look it up, I've done some research on it. And from my own personal research, I found that I think it's somewhere around the neighborhood of $15,000 a year per child or something like that. But again, check everything, do your homework, facts, all that stuff. But check with your CPA or whoever you go to. But that's pretty cool. I mean, if they're really doing work, and I thought next year, I hired content directors for the summer to do summer internships like Jim. Next year, I was like, maybe I'll have Nadia. She'll be 12 by that time. And I'm like, have her legit film me and get exposed to the business. More importantly, she'll pick up skills and learn things and develop habits, right?
You know what's great is the way I was taught.
And I'll get a tax write-off.
I was trained I joke around being a sponge.
Yes.
You just sit and you absorb your interactions, client communications, how other people work.
Yeah.
And I've always done that. Whether I'm in a networking or a business development group or just like a young trainee watching my managers, we all learn through osmosis, through taking things in. And so that's, sure.
Yeah.
Young kids should use us as role models, right?
Yeah. We know a little bit, we got some wisdom,
Yeah.
What do you think, what's the number one place that a founder can spend their time on that would drive ROI? In your opinion, if you had 2 hours a week to spend on one thing and that's all you could do?
Yeah, well, there's a lot that could fall into that bucket. I think constantly working on the business, not in the business, right? So developing your brand, right? Your presence in the marketplace, reaching out and developing relationships with other centers of influence that drive referrals in my business. There's always going to be time where you could do your admin or your taxes or your payroll and but that's not value add.
Yeah.
So taking a step back and when you think about valuation, right? Ultimately, what is a person buying when they buy a business? They're essentially buying future cash flows. They're buying future profits.
Yeah.
Okay. So to the extent that you can make those future cash flows more predictable, less uncertain, that's going to drive value higher.
Yeah.
Okay. So what can you do to get that? Well, get a pipeline of workflow, referrals coming in. Work on your brand recognition. Work on your deliverable that is high quality and you have a process that your team can follow, right? Yeah. Getting on those value-added things that reduce the risk to the buyer. By reducing the risk, you're going to increase the value.
That's it, man.
That's it. Valuation 101 right there.
Going right into what I want to cover next, which is what is your, and you kind of touched on it a little bit there, but what's your process on evaluating how much a business is truly worth?
Yeah, it's so again, I value every business as if I, Henry, want to buy that company.
Yeah.
If I'm going to buy it, what do I need to know? And so I'm looking at the historical financial performance. I'm looking at 5 years, 7 years, as much as I can get of financial data, tax returns, et cetera. And we look at those cash flows and then we adjust them to market levels. What does that mean? Let's say the owner's taking $0 in salary and there's zero expense on the books. Well, we got to put in a salary expense to get it to market levels. Let's say the owner owns the building and they're paying themselves a huge rent because they're the landlord. Well, we're going to lower that rent to get to market levels. So we essentially want to get to adjusted profits, right? Some owners pay their kids on the payroll when they're not working on the business.
That's not good. That's not good.
Yes, that's not good. So we've seen that. What we do is we just adjust those salaries out. Again, if I, Henry, and I'm the owner and I buy your business, I'm not going to have these people on my payroll.
Yeah.
So you get
I don't want to worry. I don't want to look down my shoulder and worry about the IRS.
Yes, clean. It's called clean, adjusted, normalized profit. So once we know what the business has done historically, then we could start forecasting the future.
Okay.
And so what I mentioned earlier is one of the ways we value a business is based on its future profits. So we forecast the profits essentially into perpetuity. The way the math works is the years way down the line matter less because they're so uncertain. Can
I stop you real quick on the first part that you mentioned, the expenses and looking at the. I'm sure it's got to be like a wide range of what you see, but how do you balance some of it's like, what is this? This is not an expense. But how do you weigh, because like a business like mine, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe I take a trip with somebody that's a business owner and we talk a lot about business on the trip. It's kind of a mini mastermind. But like if you're buying the business, you might look at that and go, you don't need a trip with another entrepreneur to talk business for 2 days on a weekend.
Yeah, there's right. And so that's, there's always a gray, right? I mean, what I'm usually...
Or maybe like we have, branded shirts and I do a lot of camera work. So like this is my work stuff, right?
No,
they might look at that and be like, is that part of
No, I think that's acceptable because it's related to the business. What I'm mostly looking for...
look at that and say, we don't need a necessary, if we buy your business, we would eliminate that.
Possibly, right? They could look at that. What you're trying to say is this related to the business? Is this necessary for my operations, right? So if I'm going on a trip on a mastermind to work on my business, I think that's absolutely defensible, right?
Right.
if you're selling the business, you may want to spin it saying, yeah, that was more for me, personal development, not for the business. So take that expense out, which increases profit. What I'm mainly looking for, though, is like the family vacation to Disney World that was expensed to the business, right?
People really do that. That's hilarious.
I've seen, country club memberships. I've seen race car teams.
Let me ask you a question. What if your wife was part of your business, your girlfriend, husband, whatever it was, is helping you run the business?
So that's different, right? So if your wife, for example, is on your board of directors, and you kind of go to a weekend, and it's kind of like a couple's trip, but you guys are working on the business.
What if you bring your kids?
You could do part of it.
Okay.
Right? So if you guys go leave the kids with a babysitter or grandma or grandpa, and then you guys work, it's being reasonable. One, obviously for tax purposes, you want to make sure you're accounting appropriately.
Yeah.
But two, it's ultimately what you want to get through that adjustment process is get things out of the financials that are non-business operations related or non-recurring.
Yeah.
For example, if you're at a manufacturing plant, there's a huge flood, and you have to spend $50,000 fixing the equipment. That's an expense that happened, but we're going to adjust it out because it's a one-time, non-recurring event, right? You remember years ago, some businesses got the PPP loans to keep the doors open during the pandemic. Huge influx of cash. Well, that's a one-time event.
Sure.
We're going to adjust that out.
Yeah, okay.
So we want to adjust your financial statements to be that normalized level. So it's okay.
How long does that take? Is that something you're running through AI now, where it's like
no, gosh, you know what? It's not that smart yet.
Okay.
We're using AI a little bit to.
Are you sure about that?
I haven't seen it yet in my valuation world. How about that? It might exist. I don't know.
Yeah.
It will eventually.
I feel like that's what it's best at.
Well, but
there's nuance, right?
But there's nuance, right?
Yeah.
It's like, how does AI understand that, this is normal, but this isn't?
Sure.
Like this, the way we parse that out, though, is we have a management interview with the owner. So they send us the financials. I sit down with the owner. We talk about the business. We talk about the operations. Mm-hmm. We talk about the history, and then the financial statements. And I'll say, okay, I see this expense has bounced around each year. What happened? And then they tell me, and I say, okay, well, based on what you told me, that's normal. We'll make an adjustment here.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Do you ever get people that are just lying, like you kind of
possibly? I mean, we do a little bit of work in the divorce space or shareholder dispute space, and it's a lot of litigation. And so, as you can imagine, parties are adversarial.
Yeah,
and
we're going to talk about divorce a little bit too. Yeah.
But anyway, so after we make the adjustments, right, the whole thing then is future. What's the future look like? And that's what businesses are valued on. What do your future profits look like in today's dollars? What you'll hear a lot about valuation multiples. So EBITDA, you'll hear a lot. So that's earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization.
Can you break that down real quick?
Yeah, it's essentially, think of it as your pre-tax profits of a business. And then you add back any depreciation expense or interest, which are non-operating expenses. So it's think of it broadly as a level of profitability. And what we do is we look at the sales of other companies in your industry. So let's say you manufacture microphones, right? Let's say you manufacture microphones. We'll look at sales of companies that manufacture lighting, audiovisual equipment. What have they sold for? Meaning, what level of EBITDA multiple did they sell for? What revenue multiple did they sell for? And then how do those companies compare to your business, right? So if I'm smaller and less profitable, I'm not going to get the same multiple of EBITDA as some of these bigger ones.
Right.
Or conversely, I'm crushing it. My business has huge margins. We're growing like crazy. We're going to get a higher than average. So that's, to answer your question from a few minutes ago, is how do you value it? You're essentially looking at the market, putting a multiplier in the business to get to value.
Recurring revenue. How important is recurring revenue to selling your business?
Huge. This has been a trend for several years now. Why
is it just now a trend? I feel like that should always be a trend, right?
I agree with you. Yeah, I agree with you. And
it's just predictable revenue is what we're talking about, right?
Exactly right. It's the more certain or the more risk you could remove from the equation, the more confident I am as a buyer. And so we've seen this in industries that have a lot of recurring revenues, like financial advisory practices, insurance brokers, right? Think about all your software subscriptions now. Yeah. You're paying a monthly fee, right? And so as a buyer, I'm coming in, I'm saying, wow, these customers, there's very little churn. I know what my revenues are going to be.
How long does the customer need to be on for it to be considered recurring, a good recurring?
Yeah, I mean, a couple, there's a couple of questions. One, sometimes you have customers for larger companies that sign multi-year contracts, right? So, okay, I know that for the next 5 years, I know what I'm getting.
Right.
If you're on a monthly subscription, most of the clients I work with are going to be on an annual, right? Think of like a financial advisory practice, right? You go to an advisor, you pay them quarterly. After you're on for a year or two, you're kind of there, right? You're not going to, people switch advisors, but it's called a sticky customer, right? They're not going to move, that much.
Right.
And so once you could have a proven track record of revenues and growth, right? That is very attractive to buyers. And after you get to a certain level, there's no hard rule, but if you get to 2 to 3 million in that EBITDA level, private equity starts to look at you, right? And then your pool of buyers
How
grows.
do they know you're at that level?
I mean,
reports they look at or something.
You know, they kind of
just come out of the woodwork. Just I heard you're at 2 to 3 million.
Sometimes, I mean, I talk to some of my business owners. Like they get emails every day.
Yeah,
Hey, we're looking to buy.
They just find a way. I don't know. Yeah,
that's their business model. That's their marketing, right? Because they need to feed the machine of inflow, right?
What if I'm doing 2 to 3 million, but my recurring revenue, an average customer sticks around for 6 months, but it's higher ticket. It's several grand a month or something. How do you think they?
Yeah, so six months is the life, and then they're done. So
let's just say, for example.
I mean, it's that's.
But it's higher revenue. So
it's higher revenue.
5, 6, 7, 8,000 a month.
Right. So that's good. I would say that the fact that they leave after 6 months wouldn't really put it in a recurring revenue bucket.
Okay.
But if you're
what about a year?
But if you're about a year, that's but again, think about it as a process, right? Sure. If I buy your book now of this business,
it's all gone in a year.
In a year, I got to refill the bucket, right? So, and we find this with a lot of founder operated businesses.
Yeah.
Whenever they are looking to sell, there's usually what's called an earnout provision, or the business owner will stay on for a certain period of time after the sale to help transition the operations, right? Why is that? Well, for your example, if my book is a year, I need to train the buyers that are coming in. All right, this is what I'm doing to get these customers on board.
Right.
And so the seller would stay on for a year or 2 years, and they're incentivized to keep this going because part of their payout is tied to performance.
Yes.
And then the secondary goal is, well, show the buyer how it's done, so then they can take over and go on. So it's every industry is different.
Yeah.
I think the ultimate thing that you're trying to do is have growth. Show consistency in the business, generate profits. And
multiples, like it probably depends on what if it's software and you have average customer duration is 3 or 4 years. That's obviously could be a 5 to 10 multiple, right?
What's crazy is some of these companies, they're not selling on EBITDA multiples, they're selling on revenue multiples. So some of these buyers don't even care about your profits.
Why would they not care about that?
Because a lot of these, especially if you think of the tech startup world, right, and the software, the SaaS world, you're growing like crazy to try to get your top line, and you're taking all your profits and you're pushing it back into the business to grow.
It's very costly to get that model going.
It is, right? And then the theory is once you reach a certain level, then you turn on the profit spigot and then it rolls down.
I think Amazon, Tesla, like those are the big ones, but that's a good example of not making money for a long time. But if you can ride this out and see it through, you're going to make a lot of money.
Exactly. So for those industries, right, it doesn't make sense to do an EBITDA multiplier because there's no profits, right? So they're selling on a multiple of revenues. Think of like an insurance broker, right? If I'm a big insurance conglomerate, I'm going to take on this business. Yeah, you're making profit, but I know that once I roll the book in, I'm going to make my level of profit. So I'm not looking at your profit necessarily as much. I want to know what your revenues are and your predictable ARR, annual recurring revenue, so I could roll it into my. So then you value it based on a revenue multiple. Yeah, that didn't used to exist until a lot of these subscription and tech companies started it like 5-10 years ago. But now it's the prevailing method to value these firms.
And how do you know if you're ready to sell your business or not? Like what's a good couple things that you should look at?
So it's a great question, right? A lot of, my main focus is on small and mid-sized businesses. And so a lot of these owners, it's the profits and the salary they're making from it are supporting their lifestyle. Yeah. So let's use some numbers, right? Sure. Let's say the business owner pulls out $500,000 a year from the business between profits and salary, right? And they could keep doing that each year. Maybe they're getting closer to retirement, right? Let's say we do a valuation, and hypothetically I say it's worth $2 million, okay? So the owner asks, and this is the typical small business owner dilemma. We see this across industries, across sizes, but essentially for small businesses. Why would I sell for $2 million today when I could just run it for 4 more years, get the same $2 million, and then sell it down the road?
That's a good point.
Right, and that $2 million, it's pre-tax.
Might be worth more. Pre-tax,
right? Yeah. So you got to pay tax on that first. So it's and then you have to budget, right? So if you're used to living on that much cash flow a year, you have to be able to maintain retirement or whatever your next stage in life is. So the first way I'd answer your question is, are you ready to hang it up and be done? And can you financially support that lifestyle? Right. I know a lot of business owners and people that sell that in 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, they're bored out of their minds. There's only so much golf they could play. There's only, and I used to be part of this like mastermind type group. And I was a sponge because a lot of the people in that group were older and closer to retirement, and I was on the earlier side of my career. And the moderator, the chair, always said this. They said, whenever you're retiring or selling a business or doing something, make sure you're doing it towards something, not away from something. Meaning, if you're thinking about retirement, what are you returning towards? Are you going to do philanthropy? Are you going to try out, Because if you're just going to sit around and play golf,
sounds miserable to me.
Especially for a business owner that's been grinding for their entire career, right?
You need purpose, fulfillment.
Yes,
you need something.
Exactly. So if you think about selling a business in your early career, mid-career, okay, great, you cash out, then what?
Right. See, I would already have the other things lined up. Like I would already be thinking, if I sell this in 2 years, what else would I really love to do, right? I'd be thinking about that transition.
Yes. What's the next drive, right? Because there's some, we find this with people that find businesses or founders, they get it to a plateau level, whether it's 10 million or 100 employees or whatever the plateau is. And they say, look, I started it from 0 to X, but I'm not passionate about taking it from, this level to $100 million level.
Different game.
It's a different game, you're managing a lot of people, bureaucracy, investors, all that. So that's just not their thing. So their goal is to get it from 0 to X, sell it, start over. 0, and so that there's no right answer. It's just what drives you. What's your passion, right?
Because I think about like as a business owner, it's like you don't want to sell your business at the wrong time and like you could have made so much or done so much more, but then you also don't want to sell it where it's like maybe too late and now it's like I'm not gonna sell my business now, but maybe the market conditions and everything is favorable, and then you wait to sell it in 3 years and now like some new technology or some other market circulation
hit a recession, you never know, right?
And all of a sudden now it's like that business was worth 10 million and now it's worth 1.
I mean it's,
you probably see that happen, right?
We saw it a lot kind of right around that. Well, we didn't know what was going to happen around COVID, right? And then even before that, you have the financial crisis. But it's, especially if you're a business owner closer to retirement, right? Do you want to take another cycle down and build it back up? I mean, that could be 3, 4, 5 years.
For sure.
Or do you cash out? And if you're a big enough business, there's ways where you sell and then you retain a portion of equity in the buyer company. So you can get a second bite of the apple if they ever sell down the road. I mean, this is, you have to find the right situation for that to make sense.
Right.
But,
would you get like preferred founder stock or common stock or what?
Typically, we see the common stock in the acquisition entity, or if private equity buys it, you get acquiring co, and you get 10% in this new acquiring co that holds on to it. And so the
you got to pay out and then the stock.
Yeah. So you're cashing out usually 3 ways. 1, they give you cash up front. Okay, that's your most certain. I'm going to get that. 2 is that earn out. You stick around for a year or 2. Your company hits some metrics. If they hit these metrics, you'll get the next chunk payment. And then 3, you get equity in this new business that we, as private equity venture capital, we're trying to build it, sell it.
Right.
That's their model, right? So the theory is, well, you own this equity. When we sell it a few years down the road, you get a second bite at the apple. You get another payout.
Just had a founder on, the exact same thing happened. They're getting like months away from selling the company that acquired him. Now they're selling that company. And
Awesome. So that's a lot of uncertainty with that, right? If things don't go right,
it could go wrong.
So it's not guaranteed. So we always advise for, when you're selling the business, take as much of that first chunk, get as much cash up front, guaranteed, because you're going to get that. The earn out, a little more risky. The second bite, a lot risky, and it could be down the road, right?
So to get on a specific example here, our company helps 7 to 8 figure companies build in-house content teams. We do a lot of coaching, strategy, training. The ideal scenario is we get them to a point where they can do their own marketing for them. And that's 6 months, 12 months. We could be on there we have some customers we've been on for 16, 17, 18 months. But it could be as short as 6 months, right? I'm looking at the marketplace right now, and I see a lot of marketing agencies. And I think their whole model is getting disrupted very quickly with AI, with the fact that we can shoot phone in your own office like we have here, a setup of smartphones, like the technology. You have people abroad that you can hire for cheaper. You've got AI that does a lot of stuff for us. So like that whole model of we're going to charge 10 grand a month and do marketing, it's like, we can kind of do this ourselves.
Right.
But they need people to come in and train them and strategize and coach their team, develop their people, which is something AI cannot do, right? As well. How would you be looking at our business? Like, what would you be maybe thinking about in our business if you're looking at down the road? There's going to be a bigger marketing conglomerate or company that says, all right, Alex, your guys' model is like what could potentially put us out of business, but at minimum, it's probably a good like revenue stream for us that we could say, hey, if you want to do it yourself, you could go this route,
option, or we can do it for you,
knowing that the kind of the done for you is starting to kind of go away a little bit. Like, what might you be thinking about?
Well, from your perspective, keep growing exactly what you're doing, because that's because you're proving that thesis of you could do it better, cheaper, and have a huge impact, the same impact or better impact than the traditional model. I mean, that's innovation. That's our capitalist system. Is I have a better widget, I could do it better, so hire me. The thing that AI and a lot of these things that you said will never replace is the individual, the touch, the human knowledge, the way you could coach someone to do something. But a lot of business processes are moving towards this fractional model. You have a fractional CFO, fractional COO.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you're a fractional marketing.
We're similar,
but you're like a consultant that helps. You're branching out and developing the team to then be replacing you, right? So you're on the right trend, because I could hire a head of marketing and an assistant and have $250,000, $300,000 in salary burden.
It'd be way less for us to bring us in.
Or
way less.
Right. You know? So, I mean, the value proposition to your clients makes so much sense.
Yeah.
And then in terms of a competitive landscape, you're right. If someone's charging $10,000 a month and you're charging half that, and you're getting the same results, I mean, that's disruption in industries, and that's So then you either again run it, or an ad firm says, yeah, we agree you're the right way, so we're going to make you our do-it-yourself department.
Would you, to increase customer lifetime, maybe not lifetime value, but lifetime duration, would you think about lowering fee structures to go longer contracts, maybe instead of 6, 7, 8 grand a month, like whatever it is a month, maybe in 6 to 9, 12 months, 18 months, maybe now it's, hey, we do kind of a 2-year window and it's $3 grand a month, you know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe we have a kind of like a step down, right? Our heavy workload, or the for initial project is this, and then we go into a maintenance phase, right? And you're kind of staying on to help with other stuff, and you could present or find other projects or ways it can improve.
That's a great point right there.
on the tail. So what you're trying to do is extend the life of the contract.
Yeah, because things change so fast in this industry. Social media, AI, like video content. It's like the stuff we're teaching 3 months ago is different now.
You guys are great at this. Now, have you seen this?
Yeah.
Have you tried this? This is a new trend. Have you done it? And so you're maybe to get some kind of a phase 2, phase 3. And lower the price a little bit on those maybe. But point. Again, if you're the business, right? The difference between $5,000 a month and $8,000 a month, that's nothing, right? When you think about a marketing department spend or a big ad, So
for sure.
I don't think you tell me, but I don't think the clients are really balking at the price.
They're not. It's
what am I getting? Yep. And then once we have this project, what else can you provide me? Oh, I have this whole catalog of services.
Yes.
Okay. Let's keep you rolling.
And that's it, man. They don't balk at the price. It's like, and I think what you said is accurate. We could go out and try to hire a chief marketing officer or VP of marketing manager. That's going to be $100K plus easily, if not 200 if you're getting into CMOs. Yeah. The problem is, dude, most CMOs don't know social media video like we do. Like, because I'm on the front lines. I'm living all this stuff. So I'm like real life application in the weeds. I know exactly how to get your results. Yeah. Where a lot of these folks have been around for a while, but it's like, we knew blog posts, website, SEO, and like still relevant, but it's like, but you got to know how to do social and a podcast and this and the AI search now. And so, it's changing. I appreciate that. Yeah. How do you, when you look at companies that are like using AI very heavily, does that impact the way they're evaluated now? Like if they're
starting to.
Then does it take away from some that are not? Because it's like, hey, your model's kind of going to be disrupted.
It's absolutely starting to, because it depends on the industry, right? Like if you're a metal fabricator,
right?
Not much.
You got humanoid robotics coming out of the factory, which is coming.
It's coming. You read the news.
It's actually here now, but not at scale.
Let's pushing that aside, right? If you're a business, that has a lot of processes, right?
Yeah.
Well, we found out AI is very good at shortening those processes, right?
Man, it is.
So where does we see that in differentiation in the financial statements? And we see that in labor costs, right? Instead of hiring 2 or 3 new people for each contract, I keep my staffs the same, but I grow the top line, and they're just more efficient and productive because now they're using AI.
Yeah.
That's where we're really starting to see it. Are you maintaining your costs or lowering your costs while growing the business, because that extra cash flow just goes straight to the bottom line. And so that's how you differentiate, again, to a potential buyer. I mean, that's really attractive. You have a company that has done things the same way for 40 years. You have a company that's transitioning into the new world.
Obvious choice.
There's no data that says, well, this gives you a direct 2+ increase on your multiple. It's more subjective, obviously, is what is the market going to price it at. But it's
vision and leadership is what I would like,
It's qualitative, right? Exactly.
Yeah, for sure. I was going to ask you another question on that. What about, are you seeing companies get nervous about AI, or like are you seeing certain business models or businesses getting disrupted by AI?
They're getting disrupted. There's some industries that
it's like impossible not to.
I mean,
now.
marketing is a perfect one. Marketing,
Definitely.
advertising. I mean, there's, make this deck for me, that highlights these, product features of this new drug. I don't know, making stuff up, right? You have that in the AI. They could be millions of pages in minutes and send you this marketing deck, or you could spend 3 weeks an analyst doing it, and then
Right.
So
and that's exactly why we're doing what we're doing.
Right. So there's real world application of it, and businesses are evolving and they're starting to use and learn that. But what's fascinating though is we've been talking a lot on the seller side. What if you're a buyer, right? If you're a buyer that's using AI and doing these processes very efficiently, and I have a target company that I want to buy that'll grow my business, right? First, we develop, what is the value of the company I'm buying as it exists today? The second valuation I'm doing is, what is this thing worth to me if I run it the way I run it? And it's kind of what you said earlier, right? If I run this business, I know I could, be efficient here, maybe cut costs there, and grow revenues there. So to me, it's worth more than fair market value, right? But of course, I'm only going to pay the seller what it's worth today.
Sure.
Because I'm not going to pay them for what I'm bringing to the table, right? So, when you're thinking about an acquisition from the buyer's perspective, their goal is to pay obviously as little as possible, but fair market value for the business as it is today. And then what am I going to do with it? Because I'm going to take it, I'm going to pour gasoline on the fire, grow it, and now it's worth more to me. And that's what you're thinking from the acquisition side. Now, as a seller, you're trying to get as much of that, potential.
Of course,
But that's not always going to come back to me as the seller, because that's not what exists today.
Right. How do you see AI kind of disrupting or changing what you guys do? Or has it yet?
It's going to.
Yeah.
I'm not naive enough to think that, you can't do valuation.
Right.
It'll figure it out. If it, there's already models in the marketplace that are starting to do it. From what I found, they're still lacking, and they're not as accurate.
Sure.
Sometimes very inaccurate. But what I think that some of the number crunching, if you will, AI can possibly do. Some of the modeling, they maybe could do that. Reviewing documents, maybe could do that.
Sure.
What you really need to do is tie it together, right? Because there's one thing to run the numbers and get an answer to an equation. The value that I bring and that we bring is, does this make sense? Does this jive with what is experienced in the marketplace, and would it happen if the company were to sell? Part of what I do is some expert witness work in court, right? AI can't set up and testify in trial.
Right.
Okay, so that's another thing. But and really explaining it, right? Because there's one thing to show a beautiful projection model and get to a number, but explaining what it means. Why is this number converted into value? That's what is going to remain in my business. Will we be more efficient and get more stuff done with AI? Yes, we absolutely will. But I don't think it'll replace kind of that human opinion and feel for a business, right?
Yeah. If you own a business and you're getting a divorce, what does that usually look like from your lens?
Yeah, so
that deals with a lot of those.
Yeah, a good amount of my work is in that space, and it's typically there's one of the spouses or both. They have a business. And so when you're thinking of separating marital assets, just like a house or your retirement accounts, the business is another asset. And so we get brought in to value that. Sometimes we're brought in jointly, but most often it's one spouse hires us and the other spouse would hire someone else, right?
Yeah.
And as you can imagine, if you're the business owner spouse, you think the business is worth very low. And if you're not the business owner spouse,
it's not really worth anything. I think it might shut down tomorrow, actually, now that I'm looking at it. So, and she's like, I think it's worth everything.
It's so, depending on which side you're on, right? The client has that perspective. For me, I don't care what it's worth. Right. For me, at the end of the day, I'll be testifying to a judge or jury saying, I professionally think that this thing is worth X. And so,
do people pay you in just like a retainer fees, or like do you get a portion of like what you guys sell?
I keep great question. Never on a contingency. I can't work on any success fee or anything like that. It's always, the way I structure it is, it's a flat fee for the report, the appraisal, and then if we have to go to court or depositions, then it goes to an hourly model. Mm-hmm. All right. So it's from the client's perspective, they know exactly what they're paying for the valuation product, and then because each trial is different.
So what about recurring revenue for you guys?
Very little.
Okay.
Yeah. So my industry is, I have some clients that have recurring projects.
That's why you pump referrals.
We have clients that come back and do like annual valuations as like a tool to gauge performance of executives. We have clients that we do annual reviews for, but the majority is new engagements because we finished a valuation. It's for a specific need and it's done.
Okay.
for me, the lifeline is my referral sources, right? My
Right.
centers of influence is
Yeah.
the accountants, the attorneys, the bankers, the advisors, the coaches.
That's a good point, yeah.
That's who I build relationships with, because they have the clients then. When their clients need a valuation, that's when they...
That's so true.
Yeah.
Okay, back to divorce. Sorry
Yes.
to derail.
So in Illinois and in about half the states, there's this a consideration called personal goodwill that gets taken into account when you value a business and you determine how much it's worth for the marital estate. The personal goodwill is how much of the business value, let's say I value a business at X, how much of that X is related to the individual versus the business enterprise.
Okay.
And the amount that's related to the individual, that personal goodwill, is actually considered a non-marital asset. So that gets
Really?
taken away. And only the enterprise goodwill remains. Okay, so let me give you an example.
Okay.
Yeah, let me give you an example,
Yeah,
right? Let's say you're a heart surgeon, right? And you're a world-renowned surgeon, right?
Yeah.
And you have this surgery LLC that you
Sure.
run all your operations through, okay? I could come in and I could value that thing at $20 million, okay? But if you're the only surgeon and the people come to you because you're the expert and something happens and your hands get cut off, right? There's no value in the business. The entirety of the inflow of the business, the processes, the reason your people work for you and the people hire you is your reputation.
Right.
That's your personal goodwill. So it could be worth 20 million, but if the argument is 100% or 95% or 85% personal goodwill, that chunk of that value gets pushed aside. So the
Wow,
only
I didn't
piece-
know that.
Yeah. So, so it's very, it comes into play with, again, very high professional reputation type industries, right? When the person is like the sole rainmaker and the business wouldn't function without them on a process side, right? If you run like an automotive repair shop, right?
It's less like...
Not as much,
Yeah.
right? There might be some, right? I mean,
Yeah.
people trust you, they come to you, that you may
But
get
there's
some...
a system and employees, and it's pretty check the box.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's very, depending on the industry and depending on the individual, that personal goodwill piece really can impact how much is in the marital estate.
So if I'm a one-person coach or consultant, and I have my own business,
Yeah.
and I get divorced,
Yeah.
and the business pretty much runs through me, and I do all the client work, and if you take me
Yeah.
out, the business doesn't run, you're saying that my spouse
It-
would not get that business?
It would be, in terms of value of an asset, like your house is worth X, the
Right.
business would be worth very little.
Okay.
All right.
So I would just be able to take that business and go.
Yes.
and
Now,
divorce.
where it may come into play, and this depends on each divorce, is if there's a support or maintenance payment, right? So any salary you make, that could be considered as part of the calculation for support for the other spouse,
Sure.
right? Depending on this, there's a whole equation formula, so that's separate there. But yeah, it's interesting, right? Now, you have to be careful because every business owner, every founder is going to say, well, without me, the business wouldn't exist.
Right.
Of course, right? I mean, that makes sense. But if you're, you have a team and you have a process and people are bringing in business and reviewing work, and you may have a reputation and you bring in some of the work, well, it's probably not 100% personal goodwill. Maybe there's a
Right.
little bit of something there. And,
Right.
And we have business owners that started it, their name's on the door, but they're not involved in day-to-day. They're vacationing 6 months out of the year.
Yeah.
Okay,
So it's like,
it's probably not a lot of goodwill there.
Right.
So it's a case by case. So, but that's a unique situation, wrinkle. Yeah.
Do you see business owners putting their business in a trust, like an offshore trust or anything like that?
That unique,
really your world,
not too much. I mean, we do. Business owners do put ownerships in trust for estate planning purposes. If they want, we see them putting into trust and then gifting it ownership interest to possibly the kids or the next generation.
Yeah.
There's a whole way you value that minority interest a little bit differently than the majority interest, but get a great estate planning attorney, and if your business is of scale where you really need to start protecting and thinking about estate taxes, that's something that's a huge value add.
What usually happens to a business when it gets passed down to the next generation in your experience?
So the statistics are fascinating. When you go from Gen 1 to Gen 2 to Gen 3 to Gen 4, I think only less than 0.1% of businesses get to Gen 4.
Why do you think that is?
That's a great question. Some of it is, Gen 1 or Gen 2 build it to a point where they could sell it and, they can move on, right? I mean, you need to have kids and grandkids that want to be in the business, right? I mean, I have a lot of business owners that are in the, the heavy manufacturing space or agriculture space. And like, my kids don't want to have anything to do with machining or livestock, right? Okay, well, then you got to sell it, right? So, and then there's always the Gen 2 has a different mental drive than Gen 1, right?
Yeah.
If Gen 1 built it from the ground, Gen
Sure.
2 is like, well, Gen 3 may be even more, it could be entitled and it's like, oh, well, my name is so-and-so, so we're going to be successful.
Yeah.
And
Well, it's kind of like if you didn't, if you were given a car at 16 versus having to like work for it and pay for it yourself, it is a different perspective.
It is.
Not to say that it can't.
Right.
Obviously, there can be a lot of different scenarios and it can work, but it's a different perspective when you build it from ground zero and you went to the first 5 years of the business, which are the hardest. in most
100%.
cases.
And just because someone's related to you doesn't mean they have the skills and the drive. And
Right.
So
Yes.
you need to have genetic, and the way to raise kids to have them have
Yeah.
the same mentality. Because, think of a corporation, right? The executives, they're not related. They're all the best to be brought in,
totally.
right? So you really have to work against the statistics to have not only family, but then have the skills and abilities to keep running it generation after generation.
Yeah. I want to ask you about, you do a lot of in-person networking events. That's how we met, actually.
Yeah.
Was in the St. Charles group that you run. And I thought it was a really cool and good group and a lot of insights and stuff that come from that. And I think you seem very much into that versus even social media, the virtual side of things, which I think you see value in both. But why are you so into the in-person, and what has it done for your business?
That's the sole, business development piece that I have. And we have, we don't really do paid advertising, and I needed to get better at social and media. And what you do is fantastic, and I need to do a little more of that.
Can I give you a quick tip?
Yeah.
I think a gold mine strategy for you: bring the in-person events and networks and conversations that you're having already. Capture it.
Capture it in video.
Bring it in. So I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you. That is the number one key.
Because here's why, to answer your question, why do I think that, my in-person has benefited me? People hire professional services employees or services based on the reputation of the person, and do you like and trust the person you're going to work with, right? Whether it's your accountant, your attorney, any service you're hiring, you want to know and like and trust that person.
Yep.
And so for me, getting in a room and getting coffee or lunch or drinks with someone, meeting them multiple times, showing them this is the person I am, right? Here's the, so-and-so, well, I've worked with so-and-so, and you can kind of vouch for me, right? Once you know and you trust someone, giving them a referral is extremely easy, right? Like we've met a bunch of times. I know I trust you. If someone needs to work, I feel extremely confident saying, boom, talk to Alex. And so I've spent my career 15 plus years just going out and just meeting people, whether it's people in family law, mergers and acquisitions, estate planning, very different groups that I know that they work with clients, business owners that need valuation services sometime down the line. And it's always long term. I keep saying this because you're planting a seed and you're hoping it grows down the line.
So true.
Because I've met people and we may not talk for a year or 2 years, but then they have a client saying, oh, I know a guy at Valuations. And they come out of the woodwork. I'm like, man, I haven't talked to this person in 2 years. And yet we still had a great connection that they remembered it.
I would have done the same for you. If someone was like, who does business? I'd be like, dude, Henry.
So that's the thing. So, in person, it's very easy to build that trust over time.
For sure.
Online, you have to be probably it takes a little more touch points, a little more engagements, videos, whatever it is. But that's where I focus. That's where I started my career. Now to take it, do I want to take it to the next level, add some more? There's absolutely room for improvement. And
well, even stuff like this is a good example of you just being able to talk, about what you do and how you help customers. And
I mean, listen, if I had a podcast on valuations, the only people that would listen to it would be other appraisers, right?
Well, that's why I don't have one on marketing, right? So you have one on the St. Charles Entrepreneurs Group or something, right? Executive group or something, right?
Yeah, because I mean, you're only going to think about a business valuation if there's a triggering event and you need it, right? But at that point, it's almost I need to be in front of that person before that event happens, right? And I need to be in front of that accountant or attorney, or and sometimes we have business owners that find me online, or I saw a podcast you did. It's completely different on marketing. It's like, oh yeah, I need a valuation.
Yeah, totally.
So it's I call it the shotgun approach of the business development. Meet as many people, get as many relationships as you can.
I think because you're mostly localized, right? I mean,
a lot of my referral sources are kind of in the Chicago area, but we have clients all over the country, all over the world.
Right.
So that's.
I think a local one where you just make it about, whether it's entrepreneurs in Chicagoland, right? Or something like that. I think that'd be so good. I'd listen to that.
There's so much great
And then you find a bunch of business owners that you can work with when the time has come. You get a bunch of content. You could now ask people, instead of like, hey, you're going to have a business evaluation. You could just be like, you should come on the podcast, man. It's awesome. Yeah, we'll get,
Hey, add it to my to-do list. I got to get to it.
And you know what I got to do, to be honest? I got to do more of what you're doing too. Get a little bit more in person. The content, the video stuff is good for getting people off social and into person. But I think just doing a little bit more in-person stuff matters too. Creating a community and a network. And,
it's all of the above. It's not an either or. It's all of the above.
And not or. Yeah, for sure. Is there anything we didn't cover that you think is important in terms of just what's happening? Like right now, is the marketplace good for selling businesses?
Yeah,
is
it's surprising, right? I mean, we've had an early, first half, second half of the year, or first quarter, second quarter of the year, we've had a lot of ups and downs, a lot of stuff in the news, trade, all that stuff, right? But I mean, one, you look at the market, the stock market is hitting highs, right? Okay, that's doing great.
Crypto's doing great.
We're still seeing, exactly, we're still seeing business owners do succession planning, thinking about selling, right? And that portion of our business where a lot of our clients come to us and they may not be ready to sell now, but they're thinking, you know what, in 2 to 3 years, we're going to want to transition the business.
Yeah.
Let's get a sense of what it's worth now, because every business owner has a number in their mind of what it's worth.
Right.
And just like your house, it's usually higher than what it actually is worth, right? I've had the occasional business owner that undervalues their company, but most are going to be above market.
Yeah.
And so having a realistic opinion of what the business is worth allows you to make a realistic plan going forward, right? Where? One, with your financial advisor, right? Now you have an actual number for the business. They could actually make a plan for you of what you're going to get after taxes, and can I live off of that number? Or do I need more, right? Versus making a plan off of some aspirational number that you're never going to get. Two, let's say I come in and evaluate and you're like, well, I need it to be better. Well, you have a few years to build it up. And then where I could bring in extra value is connect them with someone who help with their marketing and advertising. Yeah. Connect them with someone that could help with their sales team. Connect them with someone that could help with their technology. And get that in process for 1 or 2 years and then reevaluate it then. Because one, it takes time to make changes. And two, it takes time for those changes to be reflected in the financial statements. Because for me, it all goes back to the financials and the profit and loss statement, right?
Yeah.
If I say, well, I've got a new marketing plan and this and that, well, it's just a plan.
Yes.
But I had a plan and we've executed on 2 years and look what's happened.
Yes.
Boom, our numbers are bigger, value's bigger. Well, now you get a higher value in the marketplace.
Yeah.
So, planning, doing this early enough in advance where you can get professionals in to help you and get the business ready to sell. I think that's a huge, it's an extra value add of doing the valuation is being able to position it.
I've heard there's going to be a huge transfer of wealth in the next decade with baby boomers retiring, selling their businesses, wanting to get out of them. How does that factor into what you guys do? Because is that true, first of all? And what do you see?
Yeah, I mean, there's, this, I think it's 10,000 a day are retiring from that generation, right? Think about that, 10,000 people a day, right? So how many of those own businesses, right, that they need to transition or gift to the next generation or flat out sell? So there's definitely demand for wealth transfer. And so a lot of those people that are retiring may not have businesses, but those that do will absolutely need a valuation.
Right.
Even like we have a lot of clients that are selling to their kids, okay? And what you can't do is, well, I'm going to sell it to you for $1. Because one, just like any stock, if you sell a business, it's capital gains on what you started it for, so you have to make sure you're transferring it at fair market value.
Oh, interesting.
So we say, look, even if you're selling it to kids, you want to sell it at fair market value.
You can just pass it down, just say,
you could gift it, right? Okay. You absolutely can gift it, right? But then you have to file a gift tax return. Oh. And on that gift tax return, it says, what is the fair market value of the asset you're giving?
Oh, shit.
So you got to put it in.
Now, they always find a way,
Yeah. So, but, the theory is you're passing on this asset and you got to set the value of it for the next generation. Right. So, it always comes into play whenever ownership is in motion. We get involved a lot when people pass away and they own a business. And so on the estate tax return, you say, well, they owned all these assets and this is what the business is worth, right? And so we do a lot of stuff for that. So yes, there's a lot of wealth being transferred, and a lot of that will need the appraisals. But there's a ton of wealth being created.
Yeah.
Millennials, we're getting old, right? So the alphas, right? the next gens are
almost 40.
I hear you. The next gen is using this AI, and they're creating businesses from a computer and a microphone, and it's generating huge cash flow. Yeah. And look at influencers. That business model didn't exist 10 years ago.
No way.
So it's fascinating. It's going to keep evolving, and I think, like you mentioned, the AI is going to pour fuel on the fire, and things are going to change quickly. And if you're not nimble enough,
Man,
it's not going to be good for you.
your ability to adjust and be scrappy and adjust with the times and learn as you go. That's going to be key, man. Regardless of what you do, it doesn't matter because AI is going to disrupt everything.
Absolutely. Man,
this has been an absolute pleasure. Round 2, I think, was better in the first round, to be honest.
All right.
The first round was good.
That was good.
Too.
That's a high bar.
It was good, man. Where can people find you, connect with you, learn more about you and what you guys do?
All my contact info is on my website, KaskovValuations.com. If you search Henry Kaskov, Kaskov, you'll find all my contact info. I always, if a client, business owner, or someone wants to talk to me, I'm happy to chat, happy to explain the valuation process, see if it even makes sense for me to get hired, and then what scope of work makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Do we need the full-blown valuation? Can we do something more limited and cost-effective? I'm here to help out.
Love it.
Yep.
Awesome, man. I appreciate you being on the show. We'll definitely link everything up in the description. We'll have a bunch of amazing content and clips that come out from the show.
Awesome.
You brought the energy. You brought it today on the Founder Talk podcast. Thank you guys for listening. Appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.